Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hats because we are about to dive headfirst into the hidden history of New Orleans, the city that never sleeps. Well, apart from during siestas. Known for its wild nightlife, Mardi Gras madness and jazz jamboree, New Orleans is a city that dances to its own beat. But did you know it also harbors a rich, often overlooked history? So buckle up, because we're about to explore the lesser-known tales of this vibrant city. Ready? Let's go! Now let's rewind to the 1700s when New Orleans was just a baby, swaddled in the arms of the French colonial empire. Picture this, the year is 1718, and the French have just decided to set up shop in this swampy, mosquito-infested patch of land. Why? Well, that's a question for another day. The first settlers, bless their hearts, had the unenviable task of transforming this marshy, bug-ridden wilderness into a thriving city. And boy did they have their work cut out for them, between the alligators in the streets and the swarms of mosquitoes that could carry off a small child. It's a wonder they managed to build anything at all, and let's not forget the Great New Orleans Fire of 1788. Now there's a tale. Picture this. Good Friday morning, the church bells are ringing and suddenly, whoosh! Half the city goes up in flames. Talk about a hot time in the old town. But the good folks of New Orleans are nothing if not resilient. They picked up their buckets, doused the flames, and started rebuilding, one charred board at a time. And you know what they say about silver linings? Well, the fire cleared out a lot of those pesky mosquitoes, so there's that. But the story doesn't end there, oh no, because just 7 years later in 1794, there was another fire. Yes, you heard that right. Another fire. This time it destroyed over 1,000 buildings. You'd think someone would have invented the fire extinguisher by then. And through all this, the people of New Orleans kept their spirits up. They danced in the streets, they made music, they cooked up some of the best food this side of the Atlantic. They turned their hardships into a celebration of life, creating a culture so vibrant it can still be felt today. And that, my friends, was just the beginning of New Orleans' fiery, mosquito-riddled journey. Fast forward a few decades and New Orleans found itself in a new relationship, this time with Spain. Ah, Spain, the land of flamenco, paella, and siestas. Now imagine our dear New Orleans with its French flair, trying to dance the flamenco in the middle of Bourbon Street, an image to behold. Now the Spanish era in New Orleans from 1763 to 1802 was kinda like that one time you dated someone totally different after a breakup, just to see what it was like, you know, the rebel phase. France and New Orleans had parted ways and along came Spain with its sultry accent and promises of a new beginning. New Orleans, still nursing its broken heart, thought, why not? Let's give it a whirl. And so the city embraced its new Spanish lover, and with it, a whole new architectural style. You can still see the Spanish influence in the city today. Just take a stroll down the French Quarter. Oh, the irony. And you'll see Spanish colonial houses with their wrought iron balconies and colorful stucco walls standing side by side with French Creole cottages. It's like a visual representation of a love triangle right in the middle of the city, but, as they say, the course of true love never did run smooth. After all, this was a rebound, and rebounds, my dear friends, are not known for their longevity. There were scandals, there were fights, there were tears, and eventually there was a breakup. In 1802, after nearly 40 tumultuous years, Spain and New Orleans called it quits. The city, tired of the drama, yearned for a simpler time. And who was there waiting with open arms ready to take New Orleans back? That's right, it was France. And so our dear city, like a true romantic, found itself back in the arms of its first love. But as with all good rebound relationships, this one didn't last and New Orleans found itself back in the arms of France. But New Orleans wasn't done playing musical chairs with empires. Next up, the United States. In 1803, the US pulled off what could be the biggest garage sale bargain in history. It's called the Louisiana Purchase. Picture this, Napoleon Bonaparte, yes, the French guy with the complex, decided to sell a whopping 828,000 square miles of land for a measly $15 million. That's a little over 3 cents per acre. Talk about a real estate steal. And just like that, New Orleans found itself under new management, again. Imagine waking up one day and you're told, hey, you're American now. Please start liking baseball and apple pie. It was a bit like being adopted by that fun and slightly rowdy uncle who always shows up at family gatherings with fireworks. But the city wasn't just going to roll over and Americanize. Oh no, New Orleans had its own flavor. It was like a bowl of gumbo, a mix of everything, French, Spanish, African, Caribbean, and now American. This cultural gumbo was a bit confusing at first. For instance, French was still the lingua franca, the common language. But now there was this new kid on the block. English. The two languages would duke it out in the streets, the markets, and the courts for dominance. It was like a linguistic version of West Side Story. And then there was the legal system. The Napoleonic Code, a French civil law, was still in effect. But now, the American common law was introduced. It was like having two different rule books for the same game. Talk about a legal headache. Despite these cultural and legal hiccups, the city thrived under its new American identity. It became a bustling port city, a hub for trade and commerce, and the birthplace of jazz. And so, New Orleans became the melting pot of cultures we know and love today. But wait, there's more. Now let's fast forward to the present day. Don't worry, the history hasn't stopped, it's just gotten weirder. Welcome to the modern-day New Orleans, where history meets mystery, and things get a little bit spooky. And by spooky, I mean hilarious. Our city's got more than its fair share of tall tales and urban legends, all shrouded in the mist of voodoo culture. Let's start with the famous French Quarter. Ah, the French Quarter, where ghosts are as common as jambalaya. They say that the ghost of a certain pirate named Jean Lafitte haunts his old blacksmith shop turned bar. But here's the twist. Instead of rattling chains and making spooky noises, he's more likely to offer you a round of drinks. Then there's the legend of the haunted LaLaurie Mansion, where the spirits of the ill-treated slaves are said to lurk. But let's add a touch of humor here. What if those spirits decided to unionize? They could form the Spectral Workers of America, fighting for better haunting conditions and ethereal equal rights. And of course, we can't forget the city's renowned voodoo culture. It's said that the powerful voodoo queen Marie Laveau still makes appearances around town, even though she's been dead for over 100 years. But instead of casting spells, we like to think she spends her time critiquing the city's pothole situation. Then there's the Rougarou, a mythical bayou creature that's like the Cajun werewolf. But in our version, the Rougarou is just a misunderstood fellow who got lost on his way to a Mardi Gras parade and decided to roll with it. And there you have it, the lesser-known, utterly hilarious history of New Orleans. But remember, this city is always full of surprises, so who knows what we'll discover next. Well folks, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you've enjoyed this roller coaster ride through New Orleans' hidden history. Let's do a quick recap, shall we? We began with the Founding Fables, where we discovered that the city's first settlers were actually a group of party-loving Frenchmen who probably mistook the Mississippi for the Seine. They arrived, they saw, they partied, and they stayed. Classic New Orleans, am I right? Then we ventured into the Spanish-era scandals. Remember the time when the whole city was sold for a couple of paellas and a jug of sangria? Well, not exactly, but close enough. And let's not forget the infamous buried treasure of Lafitte that's probably still out there, waiting for some lucky soul to stumble upon it. Next up, the American adventure. Who can forget the story of the cotton candy machine being invented here? Just imagine, this city has been spinning sugar into fluffy clouds of happiness since the 19th century. Our journey then took us to the modern mysteries. We unraveled the secret behind the city's love for po' boys and beignets, and how every New Orleanian is born with an innate ability to dance like nobody's watching, especially during Mardi Gras. So, if you've enjoyed this trip down the memory lane as much as I have, why not pack your bags and come visit the Big Easy? You never know, you might just stumble upon a bit of hidden history yourself, or at the very least a really good po' boy. Remember, history is everywhere, even in the most unexpected places. So keep exploring, keep laughing, and we'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye from the Big Easy.